Hi everyone, I'm just inviting Sean Purcell onto this Facebook broadcast. I'm just going to share this into Ben's Business Book Club, which is a group on Facebook of avid readers and entrepreneurs. So Sean, who I'm interviewing today, is just launching his new book, MillenniALL, and he's a performance coach. He works with the franchise action coach. He's a performance coach, speaker, and author for millennial leaders and entrepreneurs. So once I get him on here, we're just going to jump on live. We're testing a few things out before we came on, so sorry we're running a wee bit late today. Gemma, I've already shared this onto the book club, so thanks for joining, and you don't need to share this. So I'm just waiting for Sean to join me here. Let me just see if he's messaged me. Hi Sean, thanks for joining. I'm glad you're here, not keeping me waiting. Did you get the invite? Let me know. Send a comment. Okay, I'm just adding you and approving you, getting you onto this live just now. Thanks for joining, Leslie. Let us know throughout if you've got any questions, put them in the comments and we'll get a bit of Q&A going today because there's less structure today. What happened was I was meant to get a copy of the book. It didn't end up happening, so I've not had a chance to read the book myself, which Sean's launching tomorrow. He's doing his book launch, and I'm going to ask him a bunch of questions from everything that I know about Sean, and I like what he's doing. I love the way he's using press and everything to get himself out there, and Instagram and social media in general. Hi, Sean. Can you hear me okay? You're in slow motion from my end. Can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me?
I think we're there.
I heard something there when you spoke.
Hello. Hello. Yes, I can.
Okay, good, good. Let's get started then. So, do you want to introduce yourself? I've done a wee bit of an introduction. Sean, am I saying your second name right? Purcell? Purcell?
Purcell, unless you're in Ireland.
Right.
When I'm home in Ireland, it's Purcell. So
Right.
we've got the
Well, the
anglicised
Scottish
version
call you
Purcell.
Purcell. But you're
Fine.
performance coach, speaker, author to millennial leaders and entrepreneurs. That's what I've got about you. I was saying to everyone who's come on live that I didn't get a chance to read through the book before our interview, unfortunately, but we've been kind of connecting on social media on Instagram and looking at each other's stuff, and I love what you're doing. I like your whole movement and the way that you've been using social media to put yourself out there and let people know about your new book coming out. So do you want to give a quick introduction, summary about who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for having me on here. It's great to be on here and it's great to be part of this club. So yeah, I work with millennial entrepreneurs and leaders to help them create the businesses and lives that they deserve. I have had a career that's probably a bit of luck and a bit of hard work and endeavour. And I'm at the top end of the millennial scale. And what I noticed throughout my whole career was that there weren't that many people out there who really were from the millennial generation, talking to the millennial generation about issues that face them. And so I decided a couple of years ago that I would leave my full-time corporate job. At the time, I was running a multi-million pound training company, and that I would go and strike out and create my coaching and consulting practice, which is what I did. And as part of that, I realized there was a real opportunity to work with millennials at all stages
Mhm.
of their career and their business journey to help them. And the book was really the end result of that. It was me getting really fed up with going to events and finding people always instinctively assuming that the term millennial meant something negative, was pejorative. And actually, I wanted to sort of set the record straight and actually encourage millennials to take ownership of that title, and to claim it for their own. And so that's really why I then decided that, as they say, there's a book in everybody. And so I spent some time, some months working on the book and getting out my ideas and my experiences and the experiences of other people I'd either worked with, coached, or seen in the media. And that's
Cool.
how I ended up with
Yeah.
this
Well
one.
done on getting the book out, and I look forward to reading it when it gets here. Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
It's out officially tomorrow, so
Okay.
yeah,
I
we're
thought
in
I
the
was getting
pre-launch stage at the minute.
secret access to it, getting it delivered out to me before the book launch, but it looks like I'm just getting it at the same time as everyone else now.
Yeah, I mean the thing
Yeah.
is we've been literally manic. My coaching practice is a small affair, and I've got a part-time PA, and so when she's not out and I'm constantly coaching and training and delivering at the minute, it's really hard for us to get stuff out. But it is winding its way
Yeah.
to you, and it will be with you. Those who have ordered it online as a Kindle version will obviously get it downloaded on Kindle tomorrow. I think those who have got the physical copy ordered, it will take a day or so anyway via
Okay.
Amazon to get to them. So the advantage you'll have
Okay.
is that it will be a copy
Yeah.
with my squiggle on it. Whether
Yeah,
that's of
it is.
value or
Yes,
not,
because
I don't know,
we're
but
all.
you get it.
I believe in that you're gonna go somewhere with this one day, and it will be worth something one day. And you're on track anyway. So
Well, hopefully.
I'm glad we got you on. I'm just wanting to welcome everyone, Christopher, Scott, Craig, and everyone else who's joined us live. Again, I want to encourage a wee bit of Q&A if anyone has any questions for Sean and for myself. Please put them in the comments, and we're always happy to do this. That's especially why I like to get these interviews and discussions on Facebook Live, because when we get into interaction and engagement, it's really great, and it just goes off in its own path, and we come up with new content and information. So that's always good. I have a question for you around what is your definition, if you were to and summarize what do you call a millennial? Like what is a millennial to you?
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of definitions for it. For the purposes of the book, use the definition as defined by Goldman Sachs when they carry out their research. So there's a lot of debate about generational labels and when exactly the year starts and the year ends. But we know that most generations are a 15 to 20 year time frame, and that's obviously the time it takes for one generation to grow up and then potentially be able to start having their own children. Whether it be talking about baby boomers, whether it be talking about Gen X, whether it be talking about the silent generation or the GI generation, all of those different terms usually are between 15 and 20 years. So some people will talk about the millennial generation as being the mid 90s. I take the Goldman Sachs definition that they use for research, which is people born between 1980 and 2000. I accept that there is a bit more contentious debate from sort of 1996 onwards, and that absolutely can be debated. But roughly speaking, we're talking sort of 1980 to 2000. We're talking about the people who were either born before the turn of the millennium, or who came of age in the millennium. So to make it easier for the purposes of the research, I break it into early and late stage, or early and late phase millennials, should I say. So early phase millennials are a bit like me. So those really born in the 1980s, who are analog by background but have had a digital adulthood. And those who were born in the 90s, who are like late phase millennials, for whom they were early teens, at the turn of the millennium, and but what generally characterises most millennials now is that they're in their 20s and 30s, that they're already experiencing their first sort of quarter life crisis. Some, in fact, the very first millennial, whoever was born in the 1st of January 1980, will be a millennial, and our first millennial will be 40
Right.
on the 1st of January. So a lot of people sometimes think about the term millennial and
Hmm.
they instinctively think young, um, but actually it's not now. It's people in their 20s, 30s, and as I say, people
Right.
fast approaching
Okay.
40.
And what was the reason for you picking like your target audience and market, millennials? Was it based on your age category, or was that the main reason for it?
Yep. Yeah, so I said I was born 1982, so I am 36, coming up to 37, and I have had, by all intents and purposes, a pretty successful career as a leader in businesses, in corporate businesses, but also as a small business owner. I've owned my own restaurant and things like that. Um, so throughout all that journey, the highs and the lows, the you know the ups and the downs, the successes and the defeats, what I realised was actually there were very few people around my age who could share and understand what it was to be someone who, in some cases, felt a bit like an imposter
Hmm.
sometimes because I was pretty young. I was pretty new. In fact, I talk in my book, my first major appointment was I was appointed the youngest ever curriculum manager in further education in the UK when I just turned 22. So I had my first taste of running something significant in a job I never intended on staying in originally. It was only a stopgap job, um, and I literally turned 22. And in further education, we're talking about colleges. So my students were about 4 years younger than me. In fact, they used to see me out clubbing, which was quite difficult. And I had some of the toughest staff in the college who didn't have a great deal of respect for me because they instinctively assumed that I was wet behind the ears, was still barely out of nappies. I didn't necessarily know what I was doing. So every time in my career, when I've had to make tough calls or I've had to do things, there's always been that element of discomfort for me, thinking I'm a bit of an imposter. And then as I've got older and sort of life has kicked in, and I have maybe changed my outlook and my life has changed and my personal life has changed and my business has changed, I still feel or felt that the coaches out there, mentors out there, were generally people who were older than me, much older, who weren't from the generation, who didn't get what I was trying to grapple with. Um, and so for me, I decided when I became a coach full time that I would really want to champion and support other millennials. When I was in my last role at CTEC running all the training and development for over 1,200 staff, I really wanted to empower our up and coming managers who were millennial. So I just found that all of my passion was in helping other people of a similar age to me navigate their way through life and business. And
Right.
that's
Yeah.
sort of
No,
really
I can.
where it came
I
from.
feel that struggle. I just turned 30, and I started business 8 years ago. So I was pretty young as a business owner, showing up to networking events and BNI and everything like that at a really young age, and I had that, felt that kind of similar feeling to you on maybe an imposter and not being taken maybe seriously enough when you're a little younger and you're dealing with
Yeah.
the older generation, and trading and doing business with that generation. It's a whole step. There's like a gap almost. There's a big step up and down, and I think that's a really good place to position yourself, that you're here and you understand that that feeling.
And I think the thing about that is that actually a lot of us are now, husbands, wives, dads, mums. We're having our first families. We're settling down. We're getting mortgage. If you look around you, we are in what I call in
Mm-hmm.
the book the age of the millennial. The millennial generation is about to become the largest demographic in the UK. And in fact, within a couple of years, I think it's 2025, the majority of people in the workforce will be millennials. We're seeing that some of our biggest and most up and coming entrepreneurs are millennials. We're finding that, the Prime Minister's just appointed 2 cabinet ministers that are millennials, the first millennials in the UK cabinet at senior office. We've got our first political leader of a major a political party in Joe Swinson and the Liberal Democrats, who's a millennial. So wherever you look,
Okay.
millennials are starting to take their place. And for me, it was also, how do you now navigate the fact that you're not the baby of society anymore? Because there's a generation behind us. There's a generation,
Mm-hmm.
Generation Z, who are coming up, who we're even slightly out of date from ourselves. So it's, as we now face all the business, economic, societal challenges that we've been given as an inheritance, we're the ones who are fixing it. We're the ones who have got to come up with the solutions, whether it be the climate emergency, whether it be the rise of nationalism, whether it be economic distress, whether it be how we want to do business going forward for the next 20 years. They're going to be things that the millennial generation's got to grapple with. And that's why I really wanted to go into this field, work with millennials, work with businesses and influencers that work with millennials as well, but also start this conversation about, well, what is it to be a millennial? What are we going to do? What are we facing, and how can we tackle some of those challenges
Right.
as a
Yeah. So
unified generation?
it's like the start of a, not a trend, but you're positioning yourself quite cleverly as well at the start of this conversation or movement where people are recognizing where they fit in society, let's say, and you talking about it and educating people on it, like you are with me and people who are watching, is a great place for you to position yourself, with you seeing the future of where we're heading as well. So looking at, I've never looked at the word millennial that much, to be honest. When I see the word, I almost, not blind to it, but this is the first time I've actually had a conversation about it. Actually, I've never. That's why I actually asked the question: what does a millennial even mean, and what does it mean to you? Because it's, although I fit into the category, it's something I've never really thought about, and this is really interesting. Actually, I think we've lost Sean. I'm just going to invite him back in. Just going to see who we've got live here. Right, that's Sean just wanting invited back into this live, so we'll continue it. Sorry about this. I'm just adding you back on, Sean. Hope you can join us again. I've got on my screen that you're being added. It's adding Sean right now. So if you're watching live, please bear with us. Okay, I'm adding you on again. It just failed, but it's now adding again. There we go. You're back.
You were talking, and all of a sudden it just went all
Yeah.
dead. So
Yeah. Oh well. You're back now. So yeah, the idea that I haven't really had this discussion before, and it wasn't really in my mind to discuss. I've just kind of seen it as this is my role in life. This is how I'm going to play it, and this is how it is basically. But I'm interested in what you're saying about where we're going and how we're a full generation that's actually going to be the largest generation, and how we can all understand that a wee bit better. And you've seen the future with understanding what a millennial is and where we're heading, and you've created a really good opportunity for yourself, the fact that we're moving into that.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things that I do with some of my clients, because some of my clients are other businesses offering products and services, who, when they analyze their client base, they realize that actually some of their customers, or a number of their customers, or their best customers, are actually millennials, and they have unique insight and knowledge that they just don't realize that actually is relevant to the millennial generation. And so for me, it's getting people to understand that I think the problem with this term is that, unlike any other generational term, when it's been used with so many stereotypes, and it's been used by the sort of the Piers Morgans of this world to sort of say, oh, avocado eating, sandal and sock wearing snowflakes, and it's been seen as something fairly derogatory. And I think as a result, what's happened is the generation have largely turned an eye away from the millennial term, because whenever it has been referred to, it's generally been referred to as a negative or pejorative thing. And I think as a result, what happens is that collectively as a generation, we've forgotten the things that make us common and united. And even though through our actions and our deeds we are actually united, we've avoided the label, because whenever the label has been spoken about, it's been largely through the prism of someone who isn't a millennial trying to say something disrespectful or derogatory about our sort of generation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you're putting a positive end and touch on the word, and helping people understand what it actually is, and showing how we can actually work with the other generation that maybe speak ill of our generation. And that makes a lot of sense, because that's the majority of my clients. I'm a web developer. That's what I've done for the last 8 years, and solving a lot of tech issues for 40 plus clients, and they're the ones that need my help. And I generally seek out mentors and advice from that generation on for their experience, which is great. Their experience is really useful for, say, a millennial, and that in turn works really well together, where we can share that experience and even a different perspective, a completely different outlook with that, not just experience, but generation, how they were brought up versus how we were brought up, and bringing that together and having that, where's the middle ground of that? Like, let's understand each other rather than, like you're saying, talk ill of each other.
Yeah, I think there's 2 points there. The first one is that there is obviously that difference between coaching and mentoring, and a lot of people use the terms interchangeably. But with mentoring, there is a information imbalance. The mentor is someone who generally, through their experience and their time served, has built up a stock of knowledge that would be of use to someone who doesn't have that knowledge. And in that respect, I still have mentors who are not of this generation. There are some millennials, maybe later stage, who do view me more as a mentor, because I've had a 15-year track record in business, and so maybe they see me as a little bit more as a mentor. But whereas the coaching relationship is about challenge, accountability, getting people to think differently and enabling them to grow. So
Yeah.
that's not generational as such. But I think then the second point is that actually there is a lot of talk now about the idea of reverse mentoring, which is that actually other generations or the generation above can learn something from the generation below. And so some of the work that I've been doing with corporates is to help their C-suite, their directors, their heads of department understand what it is to employ millennials, to recruit and retain millennials, to sell to millennials, to pitch to them in a way that they wouldn't necessarily get, maybe, because they're not from that generation and they didn't grow up with those sorts of pressures. So in the same way that mentoring can come from an older generation down to us, and there's a lot of wisdom that they can explain to us, there's a lot of insight that actually reverse we can give up to them. And it's just
Right.
about understanding that just because you're within this generation that happens to be called millennials, it doesn't automatically flow that you're weak, you're naive, you're lazy, you're, me driven, which is what a lot of people are instinctively saying about millennials. So, for example, a year or two ago, Time magazine had a front page which had Generation Me, which was
Yeah,
their
I've seen that.
critique of the millennial generation. And actually, the evidence shows that, contrary to what people say, they are more kind, considerate, compassionate, outward-looking, socially driven than a lot of our press would have you believe. So some of the work that I do is not only to help empower millennials, but it's also to educate other people who aren't millennials that actually, do you know what? Millennial generation's not all that bad, and it has something to contribute for you, and that you can harness the skills and talents in the right way, and also get rid of some of your assumptions about, tenure of work and things like that, and you're prepared to be a little bit more flexible. You'll find that millennials can really make a huge difference to society, business, the
Hmm.
economy more broadly.
Yeah. Okay. This is, like I said, fairly new to me. Like that, this is not a conversation I've had before, which is good because it's almost putting me out my comfort zone, and hopefully a lot of other people who watch this can get the same idea. Like it's that idea of learning something new when you don't feel comfortable. That means that you're exploring something you've never explored before. Um, one of the questions I have for you as well is with um, action coach and coaching in general. I wanted to know a wee bit about how what's the biggest lessons that or lesson that you've learned from coaching all the people you've coached? Like, what's the number one lesson that you've learned about people, or just a business lesson that you've learned from taking people's problems or what they've come to you for coaching for across the board, every single person that you've coached? What's that kind of commonality or something that you really gave you an aha moment from all this coaching experience?
Yeah, I suppose it's a really interesting question. I think, I spend a lot of time with my clients on, strategy, operations, tactics, all at the different tiers. We talk a lot about sales, marketing, recruitment, funnels, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, before all of that, what I realize is the number of business owners that have created a business by accident rather than design. Now, what I mean by that is that very few people, maybe it's shifting now with the sort of The Apprentice and Dragon's Den and all that sort of stuff, but very few people sort of in our generation, maybe in the younger generation, but not now, didn't wake up when they were 12, 13, 14, 15, and somebody says, what do you want to be when you're older? And they go, I want to run a business. They wanted to be a whatever it might be. They wanted to be an astronaut. They wanted to be a painter. They wanted to go to university and then become a teacher. And they wanted to. And so the a lot of the business owners that I find in the millennial generation have ended up creating a business when a year or two before they hadn't expected that. Something had happened, a circumstance had caused them to go into working for themselves, deciding that actually they could do it better, finding a niche in a market and going, I wonder why people aren't providing that. I'll do that. And the next thing they know, this thing called business has like appeared overnight with processes and systems, and now they've got to pay a bill, and now they've gone above a VAT threshold, and now they're responsible for tax, and now they've got to a point where they can't possibly do all the work themselves, so they have to bring someone in, and now they've got a member of staff, and that member of staff has certain rights and responsibilities, and then they're dealing with sickness, and then they've got to have another member of staff, and before you know it, a lot of business owners can get to a comfortable six-figure business and sort of look around and go, where did this come from? And actually then there's this sort of wave of imposter syndrome that just hits you straight away because you didn't start like that. The business appears and then you sort of stop. Something causes you to stop. You look at this thing you've created and you go, how the hell did I end up here? I'm not a business owner. I don't know how to run a business. And what happens suddenly is you realize that actually, oh my God, I'm no longer self-employed. I'm no longer just me doing whatever, web design or whatever it is. I've now got all of this stuff. Oh my God, I'm not very good at it. And so you've got to tackle that bit first before even worrying about processes and systems and sales funnels and marketing strategies and stuff like that. There's that thing about building their confidence and making them realize that actually they're better at business than they thought they were because they've created something by accident, but has potential, has potential to become really big. And I suppose as a result of that, what I've then tried to get my clients to do is recognize that the world is a place of abundance, and we historically and older generations have had a scarcity mentality to business, which is for me to win, you have to lose. And there has to be a winner and a loser. Somebody has to pay. Whereas actually, if you treat the world as a place of abundance, there are 7 billion people. If you've got a good product and a good service, and you're clear about who you serve, and you test it and you measure it, you will probably find that there is a market for it. And so for me, millennial businesses will be, the hallmark of them will be their ability to niche and their ability to recognize that they don't seek to serve everybody. They seek to serve a particular group of people, particular customer base, and serve those people really, really well and be in tune with them. So some of my clients, for example, are one which I'll say is a company called Hey Pigs. It is the only producer of accessories, toys and accessories for guinea pigs.
Right.
You know, you can't get any more niche and specialist than a toy and accessory sort of circus themed company purely for guinea pigs. But if you remember, and Rick, if he ever sees this, will probably tell me my numbers are way wrong, but there's like 750,000 of people who have guinea pigs in the UK.
Yeah.
But you don't have to therefore serve every small animal in the UK. You only need to serve the guinea pig market really, really well. And they've won numerous awards, they've grown, their business has grown year on year, proving that actually having a couple of products, doing them really well, having high standards, they've got really high welfare standards for their animals, they're passionate about guinea pigs, and they've created community. And through that niche, they've created a tight-knit community that really sees Hey Pigs as like part of that guinea pig society in effect. And that's the power of niche. And I think the future is really about more agile, nimble businesses that recognize who they serve and are really clear about referring other people away who aren't their ideal client, and just focusing on talking and supplying to the customers they really, really want to serve.
Yeah, that's what kind of blew my mind there, is that idea that in the guinea pig owner market, say there is like I think you said 250,000 guinea
Three
pig
quarters.
owners.
I think I
Three.
think it's 3/4 of a
Right.
million guinea
Okay.
pigs.
And
It's
anyway,
either guinea
the
pigs
numbers
or guinea
aren't
pig
that
owners.
important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
The idea that potentially 750,000 people own guinea pigs, if you're the one person specializing in that and the only person serving that 750,000, there's the
yeah,
business there.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's a really good way. I've never looked or thought about or taught how niching works, because I'm very into niching as well, and like the restaurant that serves Indian, Chinese, pizzas, chips, healthy food as well, burgers and everything, are terrible at all of them. But the one
yeah,
that's specific and teaches, or sorry, sells just like maybe as a vegan restaurant that's focused on health,
yeah,
or that'll attract those people who are looking for that only, and the other business will never be really anything important to anyone. So that's the way kind of I put niching across. But I really like that idea of using your client as an example, and that potentially the idea that they could be the only person really that specific serving that market,
yeah. And
quite a large market, like a unique market you wouldn't think is so large, but potentially 750,000 is the mind blowing part.
yeah, absolutely. And I think, obviously, what I'm not encouraging people to do is try to create a business when there is clearly no demand. You have to test this, you have to measure this. But
Mm-hmm.
the thing is that Helen and Rick, who own Hay Pigs, were passionate guinea pig owners. They had a problem as a challenge as guinea pig owners in finding toys and accessories, bedding, all that sort of stuff that suited guinea pigs. It was small animals, which basically meant rabbits and stuff like that, and not guinea pigs. And so they then created their own stuff. Rick's a product designer by background. And
Okay.
so they encountered a problem that they intuitively understood. They thought there was probably a solution. They put that solution out there. They harnessed the power of social media. Their Instagram game is on point. They have thousands and thousands of followers, pretty much all of whom are guinea pig owners, right? I took Rick to Business Excellence Forum a couple of years ago in Liverpool, which is a big national conference, happens every year, a couple of days, big name speakers. He came as my guest, and he wears these like Hay Pigs circus t-shirts, right? And
Mm.
we were standing in a bar, right, in one end, and we were just talking. And this girl came over, probably, I don't know, 16, 17. She came running over and went, "Oh my God, you're the guinea pig guy." Right. And she was like, "I've got guinea pigs. I love your stuff. Da da da. We follow you on Instagram and da da." And he gave her a lapel pin of a guinea pig and stuff like that. And I was like, "Mate, I've just taken you to Liverpool, and your business is already known. It's wherever
Yeah.
you go, it's known." And for me, that's when niching works, and that's when you understand your market, and that's when you constantly talk to your market. It's when you get a reputation with your market, and they learn to trust you. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, the more people you try to appeal to, the harder it is to build that trust. It's harder to build that expertise and that authority that you need to be able to operate in this world. Our world is so immediate now, it's
Mm-hmm.
so real time, it's so
Yeah.
online that you can be found out really quickly. And so for me, it's what makes your heart sing? What expertise and authority do you have? What do you love doing? Where do you know you can make a real difference? And just focus on that. And that's why when I became a business coach, and I know you referenced to Action Coach, I use the Action Coach systems and models and was trained by them. I'm not a generalist business coach. I don't just coach any business owner that walks through my door because I
Mm-hmm.
might not be the right coach for them. And I think it's really important to send them to a coach who has that expertise. But if you're a millennial, particularly, most 85% of my clients are millennial men. But if you're a millennial, you're a millennial male, and you've got a business that has been created by accident rather than design, and you're looking at trying to take it to the next level, and you think you've got something, but you're not quite sure how far to take it, then absolutely I'll talk to you. But I'll also not talk to the people, and I don't mean this rudely, but I won't pretend I'm something I'm not to people who are outside of my niche, because I
Yeah.
would rather serve a smaller proportion of the world better than
Hmm.
try to serve everybody really poorly.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good points there. And the main thing that stands out for me is the idea that of making sure you're strict about that, almost about you need the clarity that you've found to niche and to say it's only millennials that I'll coach now. That there must have been a point where you got to there and decided this is who I am now, and I'm not going to take on those clients anymore. I'm only taking on this client. It narrows your market, but it makes you stand out in that market as the person to go to, the go-to person. And if they've got a business problem and they need a coach and they're a millennial.
So I'm going to be straight with you on this one. I'd like to sit here and say to you, yeah, I did that. And there was a point at which I went, right, I'm not taking any more. I'm not, da, 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 da. The reality was, good or for ill, when I decided to do this, I went all in with the niche to begin with. Even when
Okay.
even at the point I didn't know whether or not the niche would work. And I
Okay.
remember a lot of people saying to me, Sean, you haven't earned your stripes as a coach yet. You haven't yet built up a practice of general businesses that have had a set of results. And I remember saying to them, but that's not what I want to do. That's not my mission. That's not how I want to serve people. And do you know what? If I've made this call and this call is wrong, I'll go and do something else. I'll realize there's clearly not a market for what I do and the service I provide. I'll
Yeah.
go back to corporate life. I'll go and run a company. I'll go and be a CEO somewhere. I'll go and do something else. But I was like, I don't want to look back in a few years' time and I've become so comfortable in coaching everybody and anybody for lots of money that I find it really hard to then go into a niche and I miss
Right.
the chance to fulfill my mission. So I was really clear about my mission at the beginning, which
Mm-hmm.
meant that actually the risk was really high for me.
Yep. Yep.
And there were times, and there have been times where I'm like, this is not good for the bank balance at points, not
Yeah.
taking on. But what I always found as well was, do you know what? I said to you, about 85% of my clients are millennial in terms of coaching. So I still do consultancy and I speak at events and so on, and I'll advise corporates who aren't millennials but want to engage with the millennial market. But in terms of my coaching, my business coaching of entrepreneurs, 85% of them are millennials. There is still 20% who are not in that category, but they have seen me in action and gone, do you know what? We still want your coaching. I remember a
Yep.
long time ago, a lady in her mid-50s coming to me at the end of one of my seminars and saying, I appreciate I'm not a millennial, but I have the mind and the energy of a millennial. I'm passionate about my business. I know my business needs to pivot towards that market. I want you to coach me. And we coached for about a year and she doubled her business and
Yep.
and it was a great experience for both of us. So someone doesn't always walk in and I go, no, that's it. But people generally come to me if they're outside of that niche. And I have the power then to pick and choose, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's in my
Yeah.
control rather than me going out to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was meaning is the idea of making that initial decision to start out that way. Even that I can see that I'm doing it. To be honest, the way that I started my business was web design, specializing specifically in optimized for Google websites, search engine optimization. So search engine optimization was my thing before websites were. And I found they went hand in hand. If I just built the websites, I was able to do the foundational work on those websites. So uh, I feel like people have come to me for that expertise in being the SEO guy in my area. And that really helps because people come looking for you rather than you trying to explain to people all the different things that you do. By really coming across as a specialist, it's much easier for word of mouth to get round and people to tell other people who you are and what specifically not to ask me for or for you for. And almost it makes them qualify themselves before they even speak to you.
Yeah. I think the way in which I take my clients further in the niching process is I get them to niche by the type of person they want to serve rather than the product or service they're offering, if that makes sense as such. So for example, Rick and Helen could produce any toy or accessory for a small animal. They know the principles behind it. They could have gone into bits. They could have, but it was their passion for guinea pigs and guinea pig owners that drives their decision making process. I've got another client who's in the earlier formative stages who has luxury cue cases. So for snooker cues, pool cues, he creates what is in effect the Bentley or Rolls Royce of cue cases. Now you don't think necessarily, but if you're a snooker player or a pool player and you're pretty serious about your sport, one of the most important things to you is your cue. Whether your cue costs you not a lot of money or a lot of money, people when they use cues or golf clubs or whatever have like superstitions and lucky charms and all that sort of stuff. So the cue for a snooker player or a pool player is really, really special. And what his cue case does is it protects it more than any other type of cue case on the market can. And so as a result, what we're seeking to produce with Rob's work there is a high-end luxury cue case that protects your cue, says something about you, and is different to all the standard cue cases you find. So the product and the service itself is less important. It's the person he's seeking to serve.
Yeah.
And that's why I think when they get that and they get the essence of that, that's when niching really can start to work for them.
Okay. The type of person that you're looking to serve. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm actually starting a business that's been in the making for since I started Ben's Business Book Club. It's called the Sunrise Book Club, and it's for I know the exact type of people because they're just like me. They're avid book readers of personal development business books, and they would definitely be interested in your book and what you're talking about. And I think it starts with like your guinea pig clients. They have a problem that they're experiencing themselves. I had a problem I was experiencing myself when I set up Ben's Business Book Club, which again was also a risk. But I was willing to do Ben's Business Book Club thing for free for a long time. And I invited all my friends. A few of my friends left. And then I kept on inviting people, not just the same people, but I was inviting and talking about it. It grew by itself, and it's 1,300 members in the group now. But I've been creating a small side group from that because of all the questions that are coming through this, that they would like more of a tight-knit community to hold them accountable to read books and really discuss it a wee bit more of an actual book club versus what the group is. The group's quite open-ended. And because of that passion I have for, at the beginning, before Ben's Business Book Club was invented by myself, I had my burning desire or problem was there's no one to talk about what I'm reading from this book. So I've enjoyed, say I read your book, I really enjoy it. And then I go to speak to someone on my left or to my right who are not interested in reading. And that was really frustrating. So there was like what makes your heart sing, on top of like books themselves. Like I just love books, personal development and business, and I love discussing it. I love reading about it and getting recommendations for the next book I'm going to read. So building that to read list and all that amalgamating all my passions into like one thing and making a community of people who read the similar books to me was the thing. So I created it for myself first, and that's what I found with creating businesses, that if you create a business, it's almost for yourself, solving your own problem, and that makes your heart sing, then you naturally will start to, like you're saying, attract the people who sing the same tune as you. And that's how Ben's Business Book Club just kind of blown up by itself. I've not even started to push it yet, but with the Sunrise Book Club, this is the stage where I'm actually making a business from the side of it, from the influx of people in there into this more sort of niche group of like an app that I'm building, but we're using WhatsApp at the moment. So that has just been growing itself organically, and I totally back up what everything that you've just said about basically that's a niche. There is a need. There is a massive need for personal development that's existed before me, and so positioning yourself, it's positioning and passion put together, and then a small bit of push, but the push isn't as necessary when the demand is already there.
And I think it's a great idea, and it'd be great to find out more from you, because I think what I took there, which you said, which really resonates with me, is you created the book club yourself because of your own personal need and the solution to your own personal need. And I suppose sitting here reflecting on that, actually, I created this coaching practice because I had experienced at no point. I mean, you know, I had a restaurant, family business, had some good times, had some really bad times, nearly lost it all, nearly lost everything I had. I've had really big successes in my corporate life, lows, tough times, lonely times. And actually, when I created the business, I wanted nobody to go through what I went through. So in effect, what I've done is create a solution so that other people don't have to go through the journey of life and business themselves, feeling like I did.
Yeah.
And I suppose to some extent, that's my way of solving my problem, which actually is a problem other people have spoken to. And I know other people have spoken to, because like you, I've got a closed Facebook group called the Millennial Circle, which is a place, and I'm trying to get a bit more engagement in that. And I'm trying to get other millennials who are joining to be open to use it as a place. In fact, some of the conversations and the debates that happen at the Millennial Circle were used in my book anonymously. And so I think it is about creating that space and those communities. And that's what the millennial generation wants to get. They recognize that life is a continuous process of learning and engaging and challenging and thinking differently and having a community and looking to try and solve problems that actually can be quite personal and quite unique, because you can still create a solution, a niche solution, out of a fairly unique problem. Because if there's just enough people, it's like the idea of the 1,000 raving fans, I don't know, in that book. But if you find 1,000 people who love what you do and rave about it, you've got yourself a really successful business. So when you think like that, and you realize that our world is very segmented now, although it's globalized, it's very segmented, and people, you know, have a combination of different labels and different interests and preferences and likes and dislikes and so on different platforms, and they can have multi-platform, multi-channels at different times. Actually being able to offer something that cuts through that is quite unique to a small group, all you got to do is get those people to love it, and you created a sustainable business that can work for you.
And what it sounds like what we've both did is we had a frustration. You've originally created a coaching service to support those people who feel like you did, and I've went and created a Facebook group. I didn't create a business out of that at the beginning. I just created a community, a Facebook group, which I wouldn't have called it a community at that time. I didn't know what I was doing. I was solving my own problem, and that was my way of doing it. I use Facebook a lot. I want to create a sort of space just online where we can talk about it. Now I realize what I've done is I've created a community of like-minded people, really, that have the same goal of continuous lifelong learning and needing new books all the time, because we're finishing a book in a week or 2 weeks, and it's like, what's the next book? But this group solves that problem, and it also gives you that space for, here's the book I just read, here's my thoughts on it, and then comments underneath it, and seeing threads about specific books. It's an amazing place where you can be yourself without talking to your brother, your sister, your mum, your dad, your wife about something they're not interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing. The power of technology now enables us to create those communities, and it enables us to have communities that transcend our locality and our local area, so we can have a plurality of thought. Because and I'm sure you've got it in this group and your other group, that actually you've got people that aren't based in Scotland or England or
No.
anywhere, that are based across the world,
Yeah.
and will view things. You'll get however many people read this book,
Yeah.
and you'll read a chapter and someone will read the same chapter, and you'll
Yes.
both look at it from a different perspective. And
Perspective. Yeah.
actually, when you talk about that in that community, that will enrich the conversation and enhance each
Exactly.
other's learning experience,
Yeah.
which in turn enhances understanding. And frankly, what the world needs at the moment is a little bit more understanding, that people can see things, the same thing,
Yeah.
from a slightly different perspective. And actually, the best way to come to a workable solution in life, or a compromise in life, is to recognize that you and I might see the same thing in a slightly different way,
Yeah.
understand why we see it in a different way, and have that discourse to enable us to work our way through that muddy life. I
Yeah.
in one of my chapters, I talk about relationships, and I say they're blurry, they're messy, and they're late for millennials. So millennials are trying to understand who they are, what they like, what they dislike, and so that's why the millennial generation is less obsessed with labels. Although there are more labels now, actually those labels are designed to free people up and enable people to live, laugh however they want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And like going back to what you said about the idea of communities as well, it's like you've said, there's blind, we all have blind spots, and like you said, those different perspectives from different angles is not just a way of expressing. It's like and it's higher education, it's higher learning, because it's like that. I don't know if you've seen the cone of learning, and it's the idea that you read a book, but then when you only really learn it when you teach that you express that to someone, and then you go up the levels where you're doing a full workshop on it, you write a book yourself on it, and that's when you really learn about it. You'll probably know that from writing your own book on the thing, where people, when I ask some authors like, what was your favorite book, and their favorite book usually is their own book, because they learned, or what was the book you learned most from, and it's usually the book that you write yourself. I've heard, I've not wrote a book
Yeah.
myself, but I've heard that's what it is, and I understand that, because I do these podcasts on my own sometimes and do them solo, and I share lessons I've learned in, not just in books, but I've learned in a book, I've applied, and then I've got results or failures, and then I'll reflect on them in discussions and podcasts in the book club, and that expression, and not just expression, but when you have a community around you and you express yourself in that community who are listening, consciously listening to you, they can actually see, they can add and contribute to that lesson and make it almost. I had a conversation yesterday, and I had about 10% of the idea, and by expressing that, just that 10%, my friend gave me about 80% more of that idea that I contributed and started the fire, that he stuck the petrol on it almost, and made the idea massive, and blew his suggestion on the thing that I started, blew my mind and made me see 90% of this idea, and we just need this other 10% from maybe someone else who can see that other blind spot. So the community, and I think that's what I said, that you created a coaching service and I created a community, but you look like you're creating that group yourself, and you're now creating that community where I guess all your customers are coming into place as well.
Yeah, I mean, so when my clients join me, whatever the coaching program is they're on, and I go from one-to-one coaching to group-based coaching, depending on the size of their business and where they are in their journey. And I run like 3-day boot camps and all those sorts of things. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
running a conference at the end of October called Better Business East Live, which is like a one day and bringing all these different speakers together and things. So there's the one-off events and the workshops, and then there's the structured sort of group coaching mastermind style program.
Mm-hmm.
What underpins that is that we have a WhatsApp group, but we also have a closed Facebook group. So it's the Mid and North Essex community, which can only be accessed by clients. And that's the space where I say, right, WhatsApp is like sort of, banter and I'm going to be late sort of messages.
Right.
And Facebook is, this came up today, or I feel really frustrated about this and I just need to talk about this,
Mm-hmm.
or a member of staff said this to me and I'm not sure how to respond or whatever. And so what you'll often find is every week of their own bat, one of the clients will put a Facebook Live video on there and say, guys, I just want to talk about this and I don't know what I should do, and have you got any ideas? And then you'll see a stream of questions and comments and things that come bang, 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 bang afterwards. So what it means is that they get the coaching with me, and my job is to impart wisdom and knowledge, to challenge them, to say uncomfortable truths, to, guide them through that process. But what they get then in between all of that is the community element that comes from their closed Facebook group, which is their shared space. And occasionally I'll comment and ask a question, but I don't always get involved unless it's a question where I think I need to give you a definitive answer on this or get you to think. I'll wait for a while to see who posts, what questions they ask, whether they come to an answer themselves, boom, 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 boom. And often what will happen is then one of the clients a few days later will post an update on what happened as a result of them doing X, Y, Z. So it's building that sense of community that lives beyond just the transaction of coaching between me and them. And then it doesn't matter whatever program they're on, they feel like they're together as part of a unified whole.
Yeah, and that just adds another layer of learning for your clients, another layer of value that you've created for them to move into after using your services as a coach or one of your workshops or group coaching. And that's there for life, hopefully. There's that group on Facebook and a community that people will maybe become friends in and comment and share ideas with each other. So I've joined communities, and it's you get the most value out of communities only if you use them. So like I have like people inside communities that I've paid for workshops and really taking action on the community and making use of it by getting people's numbers and calling them often and using the processes and systems and tools that we're taught on each other and training each other or sharing and reflecting. So that just adds that extra layer onto it. But I think, that's a topic in itself. Thanks for joining, Ben. I think we should cut it off here. We could talk probably forever on here, but one other question is, because obviously the book club and everything, what's your favorite book?
So I have a favorite fictional book and I have a favorite non-fiction book. So I have a business book, firstly, which is The Leadership Challenge, a book called The Leadership Challenge by Kuz and Posner, who are two American professors. They have done and continue to do the biggest large-scale leadership inventory, i.e. 360 in the world, called the LPI, the Leadership Practice Inventory. And I think it's like well over 1 million people across the world have undergone these 360s with reports. And if you've never read the book, this was the book that completely transformed how I led. So when I was much earlier on in my leadership journey and I wasn't sure what I was doing, I was recommended it and I read it, and it is written in a style that's really easy to understand. And it basically starts with the principle that leadership is different to management, and it takes deliberate, conscious practice. And some days you're going to get it right, some days you're going to get it wrong, and it's the learning that comes from it. And that there is an art to leadership, and that great leaders demonstrate 5 key things. They inspire a shared vision, they model the way, they challenge the process, they enable others to act, and they encourage the heart. And those five, when I read those, I went, that's it. They are the five essential building blocks of great leadership. It changed how I
Mm-hmm.
led my companies. And as a result, I introduced it when I was responsible for leadership development at CTEC. And we had over 100 managers go through the Leadership Challenge workshop, which was for us a 3-day residential that I delivered, got trained on it, delivered it. And so we had over 100 people adopt this new way of leading, which was really, really transformational. And a couple
Mm-hmm.
of people wrote testimonials on my LinkedIn about it. But it
Okay.
just, the book, when I read it, the Leadership Challenge was just out of this world. Get the latest edition
Okay.
because it updates regularly. But what it
Okay.
found is that these leadership practices are the same wherever you are in the world. These 5 cornerstones of leadership, the 5 practices, are similar wherever you go.
Okay.
And that's what their data of 1 million people and counting is showing.
Yeah.
Great.
Would you be able to, after this call, post in the comments of this section
Yeah,
just a link to that book or the name of the
yeah,
authors as well? Yeah.
yeah,
That seems really
absolutely.
interesting. I would definitely check that out. Okay. Leadership challenge.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. What about your fiction book? Not that a lot of the challenge
Yeah,
I have with Ben's Business Book Club was created because there was no such book club existing
yeah,
groups on Facebook. That's why I created it. But there is a good few people who read philosophy, poetry. A lot of
yeah.
it's non-fiction, but there is a lot of fiction readers in the group still.
So I'm not a huge fiction reader anymore,
Mm.
but a book that I read a very, very long time ago that has always stuck with me, that actually was really, really powerful, was a book called The Lady of the Camellias, which is La Dame aux Camélias by an author called Alexandre Dumas, and I think it's the son of the author of The Three Musketeers. So it's a French book from about 300 years ago,
All
and
right.
it's a this is me being a terrible, hopeless romantic. It's a tragic love story about this man who falls in love with a courtesan. So that's the equivalent of a sort of prostitute in that time. And he flies against his family to be with her. She then realizes basically his father bribes her to stay away, you're bad for him, etc. She then leaves him because she loves him so much. She doesn't want him to have a miserable life because he's been, cut out of the inheritance and everything. He may have no life. And then when he finally finds her, I think he finally finds her, if I remember correctly, she's dying of consumption. So they're never together in the end. Very tragic, really, really sad. I don't shed a tear at much, but I did shed a tear at that one. But it's quite a small book, but it is
Yeah.
real tearjerker of a tragic love story. So yeah, and it's the one that sort of always reminds me.
Yeah. Okay.
One that comes to
Yeah.
mind.
Interesting books. Yeah. So check them out. And again, your book itself, MillenniALL, capital ALL.
Millennial. So you can have it all as a millennial. That's basically why. That's where
Okay.
it came from. How to claim your future in the age of the millennial. Kindle version at the minute is on a special offer, pre-launch of 99p. We've got a competition running today, so if people download it and send me a message, they get put into a draw to win a coaching session with me. Or the book, I know Amazon in their wisdom have reduced it at the minute from £12.99 to £8.51. I mean, what a random number.
Yeah.
As like a special thing. So it's
Okay.
currently something like number 16 in the popular culture chart. So we're pushing it out to get,
Good.
and
Yeah.
it's not for me to make millions, it's just for me to get the
Yeah.
message out. So
Yeah.
what I want really is for people to see the book, to read it, and to start engaging with the conversations and the themes that are found within it. And
Yeah.
then once book 2 and book 3 and things come out, then maybe we'll have more definitive be all and end all books.
I'm very impressed with your your strategies and your marketing of the whole book and getting the book launched and everything. I've seen a lot of you recently. I walked in WH Smith, and that's the picture I used to tell people we're coming on
Yeah.
live, and your face was there. So you're doing a good job. You're obviously getting yourself out there, and I'm really impressed with all of that. And anyone that's watching, you can learn a lot about marketing branding and press and publicity from Sean. So I want to acknowledge that as well.
Thank you.
So thanks a lot for joining, and
Pleasure.
it's been great talking to you. Look forward to receiving the book, and I'll be reading it soon and giving you a wee summary of what I thought.
Perfect. Good stuff.
Okay, keep it up.
All right. Thanks very much. Speak to you all soon.
Cheers. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.